Marissa Hale had worked the night shift at Greystone General Hospital for nearly 7 years. She was a quiet but competent ICU nurse, the kind that kept to herself but earned respect from doctors and nurses alike. Single, mid-30s, with no kids and no complaints, she lived for her job. But one humid night in July 2017, everything changed. Patient Alan Rutledge, a 68-year-old businessman recovering from surgery, suddenly went into cardiac arrest at 2:14 a.m. Despite rapid code blue response, he was pronounced dead within minutes. At first, it seemed like a tragic, but not unusual complication. But by sunrise, murmurs were spreading through the ICU. The cause of death wasn't the heart failure, it was what caused it. Toxicology showed that Alan Rutledge had received a massive, unauthorized dose of potassium chloride, a compound that, in high doses, can stop the heart. Essentially, the kind of substance used in lethal injection. Hospital logs showed that the medication had been withdrawn from the automated dispensing cabinet under Marissa Hale's login, just minutes before Rutledge's crash. Security footage from the hallway showed Marissa entering his room around the same time. She was arrested 4 days later. The prosecution painted a brutal picture. They claimed that Marissa had a god complex, that she chose which patients lived or died. Her quiet demeanor was spun as cold. Her calm nature, sociopathic. They brought up an unrelated patient death from 2015, one that had never been investigated, but now seemed suspicious in hindsight. Her defense argued that medication cabinets were often accessed using shared logins, especially during emergencies. They pointed out that Marissa had no motive, no criminal record, and that no direct evidence placed the syringe in her hand. But in the court of law, the burden of proof didn't stand up to the weight of public perception. Marissa was found guilty of second-degree murder in May 2019 and sentenced to 22 years in prison. Marissa's years in prison were marked by silence. Her license was revoked. Her parents died during her incarceration, both heartbroken, still believing in her innocence. She missed both funerals. She was assaulted once in the prison infirmary by an inmate who called her a killer nurse. But inside those walls, Marissa never stopped writing letters to lawyers, journalists, advocacy groups. Hundreds went unanswered, until one did. In 2023, Daniel Reyes, a former paramedic turned wrongful conviction investigator, stumbled across Marissa's case. Something didn't sit right. He began requesting internal hospital records, security audits, and digital access logs from that night in 2017. Then, the first twist hit. The security camera footage that was shown in court, the one showing Marissa entering Rutledge's room, had been time-stamped incorrectly. She had entered the room before the medication was ever withdrawn, not after. It meant the timeline the prosecution used was flawed. But that wasn't all. Further investigation revealed that another nurse, Tanya Bellamy, had been under internal review at the time, something the hospital failed to disclose during the trial. Tanya had a history of disciplinary issues and had been caught using another nurse's login before. Digital forensics found that Marissa's login had been used on a terminal where she had never been assigned, just minutes before the potassium chloride was administered. Finally, a breakthrough. An anonymous tip came from a former hospital IT staffer. Tanya had confessed to a colleague during a drunken rant at a bar in 2021, saying, "That bitch Hale took the fall for something I never meant to happen." In late 2024, a judge vacated Marissa Hale's conviction. She walked free after 6 years, with her name legally cleared. But justice wasn't so clean. Tanya Bellamy had fled the country months earlier. Greystone General settled a wrongful conviction lawsuit but never admitted direct liability. The hospital claimed systemic failure and lack of oversight, not intentional framing. Marissa now lives in Seattle, quietly. She never went back to nursing. Her license, though technically eligible for reinstatement, remains suspended pending a reapplication process, one she hasn't pursued. "I'm not sure I could ever walk into a hospital again," she told one journalist during a rare interview. "Not without looking over my shoulder." She works part-time at a nonprofit that supports wrongfully convicted women. She doesn't like being called a survivor. She doesn't like being called anything at all. "What they took from me wasn't just time," she once said. "It was trust. In people. In systems. In myself." The civil settlement, reportedly just under $1.8 million, helps. But no amount of money can buy back her parents' funerals. Her reputation. Or the 6 years she spent sleeping with the lights on in a prison cell. And Tanya Bellamy? Interpol issued a red notice. There are unconfirmed sightings in Spain and Brazil. But as of now, no arrest has been made. A new grand jury indictment remains sealed, but rumors suggest federal prosecutors are building a case, not just against Tanya, but potentially against senior hospital staff who may have intentionally buried exculpatory evidence to protect the institution. No official charges have been filed. Marissa's case sparked a brief media firestorm. Think pieces. Hashtags. One Netflix docuseries deal that never got off the ground. But by 2025, the headlines faded, replaced by newer scandals, newer tragedies. Still, her story left a mark. In Illinois, where her case unfolded, state lawmakers quietly passed a bill requiring independent audits of medication access logs in hospitals, and a mandatory forensic review whenever a medical professional is criminally charged. The bill is named Hale's Law. Marissa never attended the signing. She watched it on her laptop, alone, drinking chamomile tea in a studio apartment she rented under her sister's name. In the background, a candle flickered. On the wall, a faded photo of her in scrubs, smiling with her parents. She was convicted by a machine, abandoned by a system, and forgotten by the world. But in the shadows of bureaucracy and betrayal, Marissa Hale found something that looked like justice, even if it came far too late, and far too quietly.